that it's interesting for you as well. So this is the third session. You remember we had one on AI for security compliance. We had one on AI for automating and bringing reliability in industrial processes. And today we have a very different project in the health sector. And we have with us one of the co-founder of the startup, presently the CEO, who is Quentin. So Quentin, thanks for joining us and responding to this this invitation. It will be a very interesting moment for all of us. Maybe you can start by just saying a few words about who you are, with your background, and then we'll start digging into the roots of Dream, how you got started and on.
So my name is Quentin Soulet-Bougière, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Dream. My background is in engineering, so I've been trained in physics, chemistry, and computer science. And I had the privilege to be part of the master that Bruno Martineau ran at École Polytechnique, and so that's also where we started Dream, the company. During the master is in 2 years, and we started Dream at the first year of this master. So the beginning of the company is very much linked to the program that Bruno is running in Paris.
Okay, very good. So we'll get back on that, because there is an interesting observation that we didn't see in the former testimonials. It says that you, of course, you don't decide when you find the right idea. And sometimes, particularly in the course of academic programs, it may come a little bit too early. Which was a little bit the case of Quentin and Hugo, because they had their ideas that is still alive as a Dream in the middle of their first year of the master program at Polytechnique. And of course, that's a challenge, because an educational program is for educating students and convert them into entrepreneurs. So there is an interesting idea, and I guess we'll get back to that at one point in our further sessions, is how you need sometimes to adapt the program to the specifics and the requirements of a promising project as it comes out and when it does come out, which is not always when you'd like it to come, so it fits perfectly with the teaching template that you've designed. And so jumping on that, Quentin, can you just tell us a little bit how you really, when the idea came out? I remember it was in the prototyping Fab Lab course where you found that paper. So could you just tell us really how you got the idea? What was the context? What kind of turned you on around that idea and not the others, for example?
Yeah, sure. So it was indeed in the prototype course at the entrepreneurship master, and actually during all the master we are encouraged to meet with scientists or researchers to talk about what they are doing and to see if we can build companies or build ventures based on their research. And so in this context, we met with different teams of researchers, and we met in particularly with one team of researchers at the Brain and Spine Institute of Paris, and they are working on sleep in general. And they told us about a publication that was released a few weeks before by a German team. And what the publication showed was that if you can send some sounds synchronized with the brain activity, with a slow wave, which is a particular brain pattern during the night, you can increase deep sleep. So the paper said by sending sounds at specific moments during the night, you can enhance deep sleep and increase the duration of deep sleep. And for us, that was some very interesting topic for several reasons. The first one was because sleep is something that is quite large without technology or with very few technology. And the technology that is used in sleep labs is some very old technology. So that was the first thing. Sleep is a huge market. The technology used in sleep is quite poor. And at the same time, the publication said that we had some ways to increase deep sleep, which is a more restorative part of the night. So for us, all that was very interesting, and we saw an opportunity to change the way sleep was structured and managed all over the world. And so that's how we started the company. And we started by, as a course, it was the topic of the course, by making prototypes of a device that could measure the brain activity, analyze it in real time, and send short sound stimulation at particular moment of the night. So that was the very beginning.
So can you tell us a little bit about what happened since you found that paper? That was a founding moment of the idea. What happened since you got that paper and started to work on it and felt like you had an opportunity?
Yeah, so the paper was, so we didn't find it online. It was the researchers in Paris we worked with who told us that this paper existed. And so the first thing that we did, actually there were several things that we did. One was about prototyping. So we wanted to build a device that could replicate the results of the study and that people could wear at night to improve their sleep. That was the first thing. We saw that on this part, it was going to be harder than what we thought, because we needed to have a lot of technology, so electronics, electrodes, signal processing, audio, etc., mechanics. And we made some very first prototypes, but it was not so convincing because you needed to have a lot of different skills in different engineering areas. So the idea that we had is that we could do it, we can do part of it ourselves, but we need to have some other people to help us build a further version of our device. So the next thing that we did was to convince different people to advise us and to be part of the project, or to be to be our advisor for the project. And so we met with a few neuroscientists, French entrepreneurs, investors, all that kind of people. And we said, okay, that's what we want to build. We have a big opportunity in front of us, and we want to have your guidance to help us structure the business. We were still third-year students, so we still had about a bit more than 18 months in front of us before having our degree. So having this credibility by being vetted or approved by these people that are renowned in their space was kind of important for us to turn the project not just from a student engineering project to something that was becoming to be a bit bigger. And the last thing that we did, which is, I don't know if that exists so much in Japan, so that's something that exists a lot in France. We have a lot of contests and awards that you can apply to in France. And so we applied to different awards and saying, okay, that's what we want to build, that's the scientific basis, that's what we plan to do in terms of technology, that's the market opportunity. And so we won a few awards, one of the Polytechnic, and one that is sponsored by the French government, which is called the Worldwide Innovation Challenge. It's French, but it's worldwide. But so the prize money, if I can say it like that, was 200,000 euros. And so we won this award. And so this gave us 200,000 euros from the French government to start the project. At the very same time, one of the persons that we approached to be our advisor is called Laurent Alexandre, he's a French doctor, but he has also he's also a billionaire, so he also built different companies. proposed us to invest 800,000 euros in the companies. So just after, I think it was less than 6 months after having started the project, we had these two things that happened in parallel. First, the award from the French government of 200K and the investment of Laurent Alexandre of 800K. So we had our, so 6 months after starting the project, we had around 1 million euros to start hiring the team and accelerate the project.
Okay, so and then what happens from there to the pretty much the end of the program, when the project, you start flying by yourself with the project? So you had early seed money, you embarked scientists, experts to build the credibility. You kind of try to create some momentum around the project by participating to various awards, speech contests, and that succeeded. I remember that very well. Dream was really perceived as one of the hot and sexy projects that was emerging from the entrepreneurial ecosystem, particularly out from Polytechnique. So what were the key steps from there after?
Well, so we still had one year of courses before having our degree. And so we had to fly to Berkeley in California, where that was the next step of the Master of Bruno. It was 1 year in Paris and 6 months in Berkeley, and then 6 months in Paris. So we were still students, still 1 year before our graduation, and I know we had the question at the moment to know if we wanted to continue the school or not, because we have this model of Bill Gates or Steve Jobs or whoever who have been dropped out, so they leave college to start their company. And so that was kind of the romantic view that we had of entrepreneurship, saying, okay, we dump everything, we start our company, and we're going to build $1 billion company. And then our parents told us no. Well, not only our parents, but like everywhere, everyone told us that's stupid. You have just 1 year to do, plus the years in an entrepreneurship program. So everything is built for us to start our company. And so we decided to go to Berkeley. But before that, we had the seed money somewhere in June, something like that. And the beginning of our next year was in September. So we had 3 months during summer to work on our project before going to Berkeley. And the first thing that we did, and we did that really well, that's probably the thing that we did best, was to hire great people. And we spent the whole 3 months looking for the best profiles that could build the first team of Dream. And we had back then, and it's still true today, we wanted to have all the different skills under one same roof, to have the person doing the sensors to measure the brain activity, next to the person doing the electronics, next to the person doing the mechanical integration, next to the person doing the embedded software, next to the person doing the algorithm, etc., etc. Because we believe that if we controlled the whole chain of production of the device, we could manage to make what other people didn't succeed to do. So have a device that very simply you put over your head, you measure the brain activity simply, you analyze this activity, and you can increase deep sleep. And we had some very strong profile that we hired. In the first 10 people of the company that we hired, we have some very strong people that were truly and they are, most of them still there today, that are the pillars of the company, and that they set the culture and the values of the companies, these people. And if we have missed, if we did some hiring wrong, the company would have never existed. If on this, so we were 10 people, Hugo and I, that was 2. We hired one of our teachers at Polytechnic that had some experience on started company. And we had 7 more people from technical background. The first team was only a technical team. If on these 8 people that we hired, let's say 3 of them was not so good, the company would have never existed. And so we had these 10 people, we hired these 10 people, we flew to Berkeley. So we started our courses in Berkeley in September. And the first people arrived between September to December. So most of them arrived in the company, while Hugo and I were in California to finish our courses. And there is some funny stories. One of this person, which today is our VP of software and product, he arrived. We gave him an address, but the building of our office was still not finished. And so he arrived like the 1st of October, and the office was going to be open the 15th of October. So we arrived in a building that was completely empty. He managed to find some workers in the building that told him, okay, but it's not open, it's going to be open in 2 weeks. And so he went back home and started to work from home. So that was his first day of work, was like that, which gives you also the kind of experience that we had as a young co-founders at the beginning. So we had kind of, but the fact that this team was so good, each individual were good, and we hired people not only because they were good technically, but also because we believe that they could be our friends. And so as we thought that we would get along quite well with this person, most of them also get along quite well between each other. And so this team started to deliver in France, and they started to build the first product and the first prototypes while we were still in California. And after 6 months, we came back to France, and we had some good technical results. So these good technical results allowed us to raise more money, and with more money and very good people at the first part of the team, we could hire some other good people, etc., etc. But there is a foundation for us has been these 10 people, so 7 people or 8 people that we hired. If these people were different, the company would probably not have existed.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Just one question that I missed on the whiteboard that I will ask regarding the research papers that you identified at the beginning is once you did you actually enlarge your scope once you found this research paper and look from with a larger spectrum about other publication on sleep, or did you really focus on that paper, realizing this is the way to go, stimulating the brain with noise or during the deep sleep? That looks like a winning way to really have an impact on the quality of sleep. So
yeah, that was very much our focus. So we had this publication, we looked at other publication that was close to this one, but most of what we looked was about how to increase the quality of sleep with brain stimulation. So that was, and it changed quite a lot after that, but that was the focus that we had, and we stayed on that for the first years of the company.
Okay, so we also have another question. So you can dig a little bit about because you made the decision to stay in the program, which was and I remember we had some discussions, the 3 of us at that time, which was a good thing for us. Still, remaining involved in an entrepreneurial program is one thing. As you pointed out, joining Berkeley at the first part of that program while the team is being built in Paris was kind of a bold move still, even though completing your entrepreneurial degree makes sense. That was a specific degree that started with going to UC Berkeley. So the question on the whiteboard is really, what was the rationale for accepting to go to Berkeley while your very early team members who played a tremendous role in really paving the journey that today ended up by allowing you to be where you are today. What was the rationale? Because it's still insane when you think about it, to be in San Francisco while your first team members are reaching the company in Paris.
Yeah, that might not have been the most, I don't know if there is a rationale, to be honest, but I can try to give one. Well, the first thing was that the program was not so long. It was between September to December, so yeah, so around 4 months in Berkeley. So, and people were starting to arrive in October. We made also 1 or 2 back and forth during this time from Paris to San Francisco. So it was not like if we had 2 years to do or something like that. But the second thing, and perhaps the most important one, is also because, and it was even more true then than it is now, most of the tech companies were there in the Silicon Valley. All the big tech companies, not only the big tech companies, but all the promising startups were there in the Silicon Valley. That's not necessarily completely true today, because you've got some very strong ecosystem of startup in Japan, in China, in Europe, in Paris, in London. 7 years ago, well, we raised €1 million for our first seed round. At the time, that was huge. Like, nobody had seen that, or almost. Today, if you don't raise 3 to 5 million for your seed rounds, something goes wrong. So the ecosystem was still not very much mature in Europe, or at least in Paris, to talk about what I know. And the ecosystem was very mature in the Silicon Valley. So being there in the Silicon Valley, and it's not necessarily about directly the things we learned during the program in Berkeley, but it's more about all the little things that we learned by talking to people, visiting companies, and all that atmosphere, which seems to be a bit not rational, but still being there for 4 months. And the program is built in such a way that you are going to meet founders, you are going to visit tech companies, allowed us to have maybe a bit more ambitions, and also to have a sense of what we wanted to build. And we decided, when we went back to France, and I think it was before that, I don't remember, but around this time, we opened an office in San Francisco. So we had an office in Paris and an office in San Francisco. And so Hugo, my co-founder, spent at this time most of his time in San Francisco. So I came back full time, but he was doing some back and forth, but 2/3 of his time was in San Francisco. So that was that was the idea. Plus, well, we didn't want to. We liked a lot what we were doing in the program of Bruno. We didn't want to leave, and we thought it was dropping out, not going to Berkeley, not finishing our program seemed a bit excessive compared to running the company only for 6 months from the US. So all that made us decide, and I don't know if it was a good decision or not, but in the end it went well. It could have gone very badly, but in the end it went well. So in the end it was a good decision.
Yeah, I think there are 3 interesting things to derive from that. First, as you pointed out, and I think that's something we will get back during our debriefing, is, you know, an educational program about entrepreneurship is probably more about the environment, the immersion in an ecosystem. than it is about learning methodologies, about how to build a startup. Of course, you do that in an educational program, but a strong job that has to be assigned to any educational program in entrepreneurship is really opening doors for a participant to connect to the right ecosystem. And that's really the role of the Berkeley exchange program. There are courses, workshops, of course, but one of the main driver of this program is the immersion in the Silicon Valley. And so the second idea, as you pointed out, and things have changed, but still it's a unique place that it carries in 90% of the time a huge value to go there, regardless of the project you're working on, because you connect with people. So that immersion actually has, and I've always observed that, a huge positive impact on the entrepreneurial journey of the startup founders and the project. And it doesn't mean obligatorily that you stay there or you open an office like Dream did, but it does mean that it's one of the hubs that you have to go in 90% of the cases to analyze your project from the local lens of the Silicon Valley and see what happens, meeting with people, talking to everyone. And it's very easy from that perspective. So these are interesting points. One question on the Padlets is that, so you mentioned that you spend lots of time hiring your early team, and that was a core move for really building the heart of the organization. And the question is, how did you do that? Did you get some advice? Did you get some help? Or did you just follow your instinct and try to people who more or less intuitively came out as with a good level of expertise and fitting with the values, the journey that you had in mind, the culture, we would say now?
Yeah, one of the first things we did was we thought that we were not experienced enough and good enough to hire people. So we asked help from a human resources person. And it was probably, well, the worst thing we could do was actually so asking help is always good, but she started to look at different profiles and do part of the job herself. But really, if you want to choose the person that you are going to spend the next years with, that's definitely a job that you should do. And even one of the profiles that she removed from the one we saw has been a person that we hired in the end, and that was one of the key person that he just left a few months ago, but he stayed there for 6.5 years in the company and has been really one of the lead engineer for hardware development. And so first thing was that, thinking, okay, we are not able to do that ourselves, let's delegate to somebody else. And that was a mistake. So what we did was we talked to everybody that we could knew. For example, if we are looking at somebody doing some embedded algorithm, we talked to all the director of masters of each program, so all the people that we could knew, and ask, okay, we are looking for somebody doing some, for example, machine learning and neuroscience. And so we send this message to all the directors of the machine learning masters in Paris and even abroad, actually. And so some of them didn't answer, and some of them told us, okay, I met this guy, hired this guy as a student 3 years ago. I think he's great, you should contact him. And we spent a lot of time asking for recommendation to the people we knew, or even the people we didn't know, but that were relevant. And we also spent a lot of time on LinkedIn ourselves. So we scrapped LinkedIn a lot and contacted a lot of people. Some of them didn't want to join. but we were lucky enough to have money in the bank account, so we could pay them the market price, and the project was kind of exciting and more exciting than what other company could offer at the moment. So we were lucky enough for each position to have several profiles and to be able to choose really the profile that we wanted to work with.
Okay, very good. So one of the interesting insight from that is that that it's really a system that you need to put in place. So the fact you raise money early enough actually played a significant role in doing that second core job, which is to attract the level of talent, because the challenges, the technical challenges were huge. So you needed really extremely skilled people, and raising enough fund actually helped you to successfully attract a core team of very talented people that you started to work with. So that's a very interesting observation on that idea. And as you pointed out, now that the funding landscape has changed, because money is available in higher volume, but 1 million euro at that time as a seed funding was like probably 15 today in a seed round, when it was really a huge amount, and many people thought it was too much actually for at the stage where the company felt like they should bootstrap and with what they had and prove what they can do before they start raising some funds. So when we prepped this session, Quentin, I told you it might be interesting to, if you manage to find one, to do an early pitch. So now we're in the more or less reaching the end of the studies. You have the program, you have the team, you started to work on. So I thought it could be interesting for the audience to share your understanding how you pitch your project at that stage. I don't know if that's possible, if you manage to find very early slides of any contest or
yeah, I forgot. I had the pitch, but I didn't look at the slide actually. So yeah, I don't have the slide there. I think I can find them not so hardly, but I don't have it.
Yeah, no, okay, take a minute. In the meantime, if you have questions, use the Padlet. I'm trying to note down the key ideas to address each of your questions on it. So please keep asking questions on the Padlet, so we can address them.
Yeah, that's all.
Okay. So you have something that reminds you the good old days?
Yeah, that was kind of a long time ago. This is called Presentation in UC Berkeley. So I don't know what's in it.
Yeah, let's go for it. So you can share your screen.
Yeah.
I will do a short remark to the audience.
Okay. Okay, go
ahead. Okay. 参加者の皆さんの今、ジャーニーのところがほぼ終わって、次、ピッチのところのお話をされるので、ここまでの話でもし質問と疑問があったら、ぜひパドレットの方に書き込んでみてください。お願いします。OK。
Okay, very good content. You can go.
Okay, let's go. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, very well, very well. I remember it now.
So there is like 50 slides. I'm not going to be through all of them. But
yeah, no, just browse. The idea is really to understand how you pitch your project, which was really how yourself you understood your entrepreneurial journey by that time.
Yeah. So dream. So,
yeah, can you, as a starter, when did you do that one? It was
in Berkeley.
Okay, in Berkeley. So which year was it? We had 2014, yeah.
2014 or 2014, yeah. End of
Okay.
2014.
Okay, let's go ahead. So 7 years ago.
So dream bands augment people's ability by optimizing the structure of their sleep. People sleep poorly, stress, productivity constraint, etc., etc. All that decreases the quality of sleep. But sleep matters for focus and memory because it's linked to serious disease. And not only the quantity matters, but also the quality matters. And some people are quite well known to sleep only 4 hours per day, per night, but still be in shape. So Napoleon, for example, famous French general, was known to sleep only 4 hours per night, but still were efficient. And so that was a huge advantage for him over the other humans at the time. Existing solution to augment the quality of sleep does not work. The sleeping pills are addictive and have side effects. Some neurotechnology product allows to measure sleep, but does not improve sleep. And some apps, same thing, allows to track sleep, but don't have a lot of impact on the quality of sleep. Our discovery is that by sending sound stimulation synchronized with brain activity, we can increase the duration of deep sleep by up to 1 hour per night and increase the memory consolidation of 20%. That was the results that has been published when we started the company. Developed with neuroscientists and sleep doctors at the Brain and Spine Institute of Paris. So that's what we call a hypnogram. That's the different stages of sleep during the night. So you go from awake, then you go in light sleep, then deep sleep, then awake, then that's a sleep cycle. And then again, light sleep, deep sleep, REM sleep, light sleep, etc., etc. What we showed was by sending some sounds synchronized with the brain activity at particular moment of the night, we could increase the duration of stage 4, which is a deep sleep. So we can increase the duration of deep sleep and increase the quality of sleep. So that was the design of the product that measured the brain activity and analyzed the sound in real time and send audio feedback. So this device actually never existed, but anyway, and sends audio sounds to increase deep sleep. With a mobile application, that's an awful one, but however, to monitor sleep with a smart alarm and with personalized advice to improve sleep. That's the version 0.1 of our headband. So is Nicolas. It was one of the early persons that we hired. That was in our previous office. And that was the very first prototype of our device that measured brain activity and send audio stimulation. It needed to be plugged to a computer because the computation power was on the computer. So each of the night and naps, we needed to have the headband plugged to a computer next to our bed. Processing and electronic ports. Competitive landscape, red ocean, blue ocean, sleep medicine, food supplements, smartphones, wearables, neurotechnology, and Dream is at the center of all that. That was a framework that we learned during our master, the petal diagram. Sales and marketing. So we target people from 25 to 45 years old, high income, tech enthusiasts, performer. And how do we target them? Through airlines companies, specialized media, and targeted ads. 2 revenue streams. I don't remember what were our 2 revenue streams. Sales of the product and subscription of the database to hospitals that we never did. And price was $500. It actually was $500 in the end. And the cost of production, it was not so far from what we had in reality, which was indeed about $150. The financials. We actually started like that. We were 57 in 2016, but we were not 102 and that. The first part, yeah, that was not so bad. I think we did 10,000 in 2016 customers, and the growth was around that. Next year's, unfortunately, didn't work like that. That was part of the team, and not the best picture that we took, because that's some people that I still know today. So that's why it makes me love to see the pictures. So as I mentioned, the strategic advisors and the scientific advisors that we had, the prize award that we won, that was what I mentioned at the beginning. So what's next? Our roadmap. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, so it's an interesting exercise because that's the typical pitch that is that student produce at the end of the program working on a real project. So the structure is interesting because it does apply to every project. You know, you start by stating clearly the problem. People don't sleep well. An existing solution don't work well, and this is the problem that we're going to tackle. And in the successful project, usually that doesn't change a long time. What changes, and we will discuss that in the case of Dream, is really how that problem converts into a market, and in a value proposition, and in a business model. That is usually the result of a long and very iterative exploration. So, so starting from there, Quentin, getting back on our journey. So let's put us at the end of the program. So you finish the program. So what were the key steps? So you have that idea, you're going to build, design and manufacture this headset that you're going to sell to typically the 25 to 45 hyperactive executive, I think you called him the overachiever, the guy who really want to be all the time at his best during workday. Yeah. So what happens? So this is the pitch. You had money, you raised some money, you have a team, you have that plan in mind that you just pitched. You have a target market in mind, that overachiever, 25 to 45 overactive. What happened next?
It actually started like that. So the beginning was like that. So we delivered on technology. We had some things that worked well. We showed that we built our first industrialized version. We called it the beta version, but it was a fully industrialized version. And as we thought that we still needed to improve on the technology, but at the same time, we wanted to push the product as soon as possible to the users. We wanted to sell the product in the direct-to-consumer approach, not to go through the long regulatory journey, but have feedback as soon as possible. Get data, get brain EEG data, get users feedback data. And so we decided that for this first beta version, we sold it in a direct-to-consumer, but with a limited number of editions. So we had 500 devices, and people needed to apply to get one of them. So we had 8,000 people who applied, and we selected among these 8,000 people, 500 of them who we shipped the device, and they had to pay, I think it was $400 at the time. So they had to pay $400 to get the device in exclusivity. We were inspired by it didn't work, by the way, but what Google did with the Google Glass. You know, you had some people with the Google Glass, you didn't know how they get it, but you knew they were important because they had some Google Glass. And that was a bit the same thing that we wanted to do. So we had these people who applied to the program, and what we tell them was, you pay your product. We selected you based on whatever criteria, and we want to have intensive feedback from you during 1 year and 1.5 years. And at the end of that, we give you for free the next version of our device. So you pay the first device, you give us a lot of feedback, we build the next version of our device, and this one you will get for free. So that's what we did. The results were good. The technical results were good. We showed that indeed we managed to increase the duration of deep sleep, and we solved most of the technical problems about measuring simply the brain activity, analyzing it in real time, and sending sounds precisely timed to increase deep sleep. So all that worked quite well. We raised significant more money. So we had one additional round of 6 million, then one round of 8 million, then one round of 30 million. And the team grew. And at the beginning, the sales went quite well. And the first year, we sold around 10,000 devices, which was pretty good. For first years, saying 10,000 devices, that was very good. And that's where we raised our 30 million euros. That was led by Johnson & Johnson and BPI and another French billionaire and a French healthcare insurance. And so that was in 2017.
Okay. So during all this time, the major focus was really kind of the continuation of that pitch that we just saw, which is to position the device as the consumer product to help some people to better sleep. However, if I remember, during that time, at the same in parallel was that discussion, because you're dealing with something that can lead to diseases. So sleep is at the same time a strong component of well-being, but also it can be seen as a source of diseases, so as a medical issue. So can you just elaborate a little bit how that question trade-off between remaining focused on well-being, selling it as a product for consumers, and the medical angle started to come out, and how did you handle it during that first period?
Yeah, so we had about at the same time. So what I mentioned is something like end of 2017. About at the same time, we had a growing interest from researchers to use our device, or from sleep doctors that believe that the technology that we developed could be used for a lot of other applications in the sleep field. And so we had this discussion. At the moment, I started to spend some time to assess these different business opportunities that was more related to the medical field. And we had this strategic question that was, should we go on a more medical route? Because we already started to see companies doing virtual first care or other stuff that I'm going to mention later. Or should we go to the direct-to-consumer business? And the beginning of the sales for Dream was great. For the first months, we sold several thousands. Maybe the first 3 months, I think the first 3 months we've sold 5,000 devices. So it's kind of a lot of money. That's 2.5 million euros. That on these 3 months, the company was profitable for a very short period of time. And at the same moment, we had a 30 million investment on this thesis of direct to consumer. So we grabbed late 2017, 30 million euros led by Johnson & Johnson, which is a pharmaceutical company, but it's also a medical device company, and it's also a consumer health company. And so in Johnson & Johnson, the one that supported the investment was the consumer part of Johnson & Johnson. And so this investment, in the end, the fact that we received 30 million from these people, and the fact that the sales started great from the direct-to-consumer product killed a bit the reflection of a more medical applications, because the market gave it gave reason to the consumer direction, both investment and consumers. And so even this question of should we take a more important position in the medical space was not was closed down at this time, and we continued on the consumer journey. Also, even if most of the companies, big tech companies, invested in health, their strategy for health wasn't so clear. Today, I don't know if you are familiar with it, but you've got all these companies like Livongo, Noom, Hinge Health, that are merging technology and sleep medicine to reshape sleep care and to replace the current care pathway. That company today, they are valued billions or tens of billions, but at the moment they didn't exist. You've got the very first version of them, but it wasn't an obvious choice that we were, from a product standpoint or technical standpoint, we were merging some technology and some sleep medicine. The question of should we apply that to the consumer, so healthcare will go from the consumer to the medical world, or should we apply that to the medical world to reshape the medical world? Today, the question is a bit solved, and people will tell you should go medical, because we've got all these companies that manage successfully to do it. At the time, the question wasn't solved, and the market and the investment both asked us to go on the consumer direction. So that's where we went.
So it's a very interesting point that you're making, Quentin, on the dynamic of a deep tech startup at the beginning, because at what you point out, sometimes you have a tricky system that gets put in place. The first trap in that tricky system is that very often early metrics can lie about the real long-term potential. And that's one of the things you're mentioning. You were getting a good early traction from consumers, which kind of confirmed that it was the right way to go. And that's something I'd like to point out, because it's often the case in both ways. Sometimes you get good numbers and you think, well, that's definitely the confirmation that the roadmap is the right one. And what you point out is that at the end of the day, it's often not the case. And the opposite is true. Sometimes you're getting wrong, very bad results from the early days, which doesn't mean it's the wrong journey. Just means that you haven't yet found out the right way or the right subgroup to tackle, to focus on, to get it to work. So early stage metrics are tricky, because when they're good, it doesn't mean you're looking in the right direction. And when they're bad, it doesn't mean you're wrong. Just mean that so far you haven't yet cracked the code to execute. And one extreme example is the birth of Instagram, that came out from a social network that failed. And there was that one tiny function in among hundreds, photo sharing function that seemed to capture some traction. But if you looked at the numbers globally, it was a total failure. It had to look down in a small part to realize that, interestingly, there was a sub part of the system that seemed to get some traction. And the founders actually decided to focus on that, and it became Instagram. But Instagram, too, so you understand, it was the cup holder of a car. It's like designing a car and realizing everything sucks. But people seem to like the design of the cup holder. Because at the end of the day, Instagram was the cup holder of the bourbon, that social network. So one interesting learning from that is really that early metrics are tricky to analyze, because you don't know how to analyze them in both ways, if they're good or if they're bad. And the second interesting things that comes out from what you just said, Quentin, is that system that you put in place. You know, the investors around you, they come with an agenda. So you had Johnson & Johnson, the consumer division that was interested in that, what you were doing as a potentially a consumer device in the well-being. So that creates a strong inertia force to keep moving in that direction, because suddenly you have that big player who puts lots of money in the business for going in that direction. So also it makes it extremely hard to keep looking in another direction, because this is the plan that they invested in. So it's kind of a normal feeling. So this is what we should be doing. And once that system is put in place, you have your own ideas as a founder. You have investors who are pushing, big investors in going into that direction. Early metrics are hard to analyze for the reason I mentioned. So you see, it's very tricky when the system is being put in place to question what you're doing and say, is it really the right direction? Because everything kind of pushes you to keep doing what you're doing. So can you, getting back on that, because I think it's a very important point in the journey of Dream. When did you start questioning really that direction of well-being? Because numbers in B2B sales kind of reach a plateau, and you felt like they were not growing as they should, if they were really the potential you thought were there at the beginning. And at the same time, you were getting requests and the feeling that there was that other part that was not investigated. How did really the question came back to life in a strong enough form so you could engage Dream in another direction?
Actually, it started quite soon. It started quite soon that we had signals from the market that the initial sales that we had were not going to last. And so I said that we did 5,000 units for the first 3 months, and we did also 5,000 units for the next 9 months. So we're like a big peaks in sales, and then it decreased and plateaued. And our first reaction was, okay, we need to understand what was, why people bought it at the beginning, why they didn't buy it now, and what we need to change in the product, and what we need to change in the experience, in everything, in the communication, to make sure that people that to understand, to get the product market fit. So we know that some people like the product, we know that some people are satisfied. We need to focus on that people and to shift the product to be sure that the product will answer their needs. And that's what we tried to do for quite a long time. And at the same time, we had still a growing interest of researchers or pharma companies for what we did. But our focus were on consumer and adapting the product so that we could manage exponential growth on the product. And so it went to the next iteration of the hardware. So we had Dream Beta, the one that there's a 500 devices, then Dream 1, that one, the one that had good sales. Then from Dream 1, we had Dream 2, where we solved most of the technical problems. And then from Dream 2, satisfaction was higher, but sales were not scaling. And I think at this time, the things that we did early 2017 were, that was a rational decision to take. You couldn't say at this time, we should have done differently. All the signals that we have were driving us to the direction that we followed. But at the end of 2018, then all the signals that we had were starting to drive us away from that. And that was a bit of a mistake on our side to want to continue on that when the traction was starting to grow from elsewhere, and we didn't manage to solve the consumer problem and to make the consumer grow exponentially. So that was around, and then it's hard to make the decision and to say, okay, what we've done, what we've built, the first the traction, the sales that we've had, they are not amazing, but they are decent. Make the decision to say, we shut down that business, we lay off the people that are working on this business, and we build another business based on what we have, is a complicated decision. And it took us some time to make this decision. So and I think we had all the elements to make this decision sooner, but in the end, we spent maybe 3 years or 2 years and a half on the consumer journey, where we could have said 1 year after starting it, okay, it's not gonna work. We've learned a lot, we iterated a lot on that, we gained a lot of credibility. Based on that, we should go on the medical path. But instead of doing that in 2018, in the end, we did that in 2020 or even early 2021 or late 2020. So this moment was a bit of a mistake. It was a mistake in the way we but first, it's a hard decision to take, to say, okay, these people that worked so hard, and it's not their fault, but we should fire them. It's not a good decision. This business that we took so energy to build, we should shut it down, and you should announce that to your investors. So that was kind of a hard thing to do, and we took quite a lot of time to do it.
And one of the things that is interesting to point out in that process, that when the business grows, there is an issue of governance. You put in place a board where you have investors, but not only investors, to really work along with management, core decisions. So I'd like your input on that, Quentin, because my feeling, and I know we already slightly discussed that, is that this should have been the role of governance, not just as the relay of what investors want, but precisely as an independent team of people that help you to rethink or confirm the direction where the company is heading. Isn't it really a default in the way governance worked during that time? Because it could have been their role to really push independently from what investors might have in mind, to think more strongly in going in that direction. Or do you think it could have, these 3 years were pretty much the only way to go until you could make such a decision?
No, I think the decision should have been made earlier, either by us or by the board, indeed. We don't have a board of directors with a lot of experience in healthcare, necessarily. And so the role of the board of directors is often something that I've considered not so important, but in the end, the good investors and good board directors should be there indeed. When you have your head focused on your problems, they are the people that should, because they are not operational, that should also help us guide, etc., etc. And they didn't play their role either on that. That's not their fault necessarily, but they didn't play their role on the guidance. They didn't do that. They could have done that. They didn't do it.
Yeah, so it's an interesting part of the job of a startup founder, because one of your role is really to put in place that board that will act as an independent force. So as it is independent, that means it will not always agree with what you're doing, but it also plays a key role, in helping the founders to keep things in perspective. Because what's difficult when you're funding a business, that you have to manage daily operation, and you need to find time to extract yourself from this daily operation to rethink what you're doing. So you have to go through an impossible journey where every day you deal with short-term issues, problems, people fight, suppliers don't deliver, technology doesn't work yet, and you're late in your plans. and you need to keep some bandwidth to look at your project from a totally different lens, which is that strategic roadmap. Are we really heading to the right direction? And it's almost impossible, actually, for founders to do that in a smooth, balanced way. So the role of the board is really to represent the place where these long-term discussions will be challenged with external perspectives that are there to help and challenge the founders about this core decision. Because as a founder, you cannot do both in a smooth, balanced, efficient way. So it's tricky for a founder because you put in place a team of people that very regularly, at the end of the day, may strongly disagree with you with what's happening, but you need to do that to really serve the project as its best interest. So it's a very interesting point, and we didn't touch that in the former discussion, but it's a very important point that that comes out from the journey of Dream. So maybe to illustrate the quantum of evolution of the project between when you started with that idea of a headset for the overachiever consumer product for well-being. Can you share with us just a few slides of what the company is doing today, how you pitch it when you approach today partners, people, so you can see really the changes during that that phase.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we believe that redefining how sleep is managed is the best way to improve health at scale. So poor sleep is one of the largest healthcare problems. In the US only, I'm going to put my screen in. Yeah. So in the US only, you have 100 million people suffering from sleep disorders, insomnia and sleep apnea. The cost of poor sleep is $150 billion to the US economy, and the cost that payers, health insurance pay to treat and diagnose sleep disorders is $12 billion every year. So it's kind of a huge money that is invested in sleep every year. And today, sleep care has not been reshaped yet as some other company did for other pathologies. So in diabetes, you've got a company called Livongo who mixed science of diabetes and technology to reshape the way patients are managed. And this company today, it's a company that is valued a bit more than 20 billion. It's been acquired for $80 billion. Obesity, there is no chronic pain in health, all big company. For sleep disorders, there is no big players, and we want these big players to be Dream. For that, we assembled a unique team that merged sleep medicine and deep technology. And we've got, for example, Tony Mastry, our Chief Medical Officer. He's a sleep doctor from Stanford who has been running a network of 10 sleep clinics. Or Anne Rezer, she's a former CEO for ResMed Europe and Asia. Today, ResMed has been, well, is still today, the largest company in sleep in the world. So that's the different steps that we've been. So first, R&D program, as I mentioned, a lot of patent, a lot of publication, iteration with consumer. So we went direct to consumer. That allowed us to acquire a bit more than 2.5 million nights. We sold 30,000 headbands. And based on all the validation that we had on the direct-to-consumer business, we went to a more medical world using our technology to handle patients, either in the context of clinical trials, that's what we do with Dream Labs, or care and diagnosis, that's what we do with a digital sleep clinic. For clinical trials, we have today more than 300 research labs using our device, 10 pharmaceutical companies using our device to measure sleep in clinical trials. And we also have 2 headbands in the International Space Station to measure the sleep of astronauts for scientific purposes. we started this business of clinical trial 12 months ago, and less than 12 months after that, today the company is profitable. We have a price that is around $4,000 per patient and a 95% gross margin. But it's not only about solving sleep for clinical trial purposes, it's about solving sleep globally. And of that, despite the very high spendings for sleep disorders, most of the patients in the US remain untreated, neither for insomnia nor for sleep apnea. And that can be explained by the very complex care pathway. A patient needs to go to see his primary care physician. Most of the time, he will end up taking sleeping pills against the recommendation of health organization. Then he needs to see a sleep doc, make a night in polysomnography, sees a sleep doc again, contact a durable medical equipment provider. The CPAP is sipped, but even if the patient gets the CPAP, more than half of these patients are going to drop before 1 year of treatment. What we do is that we merge sleep medicine with deep tech technology to reshape sleep care, and we build our own digital sleep clinic with healthcare professionals that we hire, medical devices that we produce and we build, and digital coaching and AI to improve the patient experience and to make some care coordination from the beginning to the end. We've got 3 big steps, one which is screening and enrollment, diagnosis at home, and treatment at home. So we make everything at the home of the patient directly, either through telehealth consultation with a sleep doctor, or by sending the device for diagnosis or sending the device for treatment. For that, we have technologies all over at every step of the way that we have developed and approved internally. So we've got a platform that's a sleep quiz, but we have more than 1 million people that went through it. That's our lead generation. We have an app to improve sleep, which is the next step, and also to screen OSA with sound, so we can detect people with high risk of obstructive sleep apnea. For these people, we have a telehealth consultation with a sleep doctor that is done remotely. Then we ship devices at their home that we build as well and validated to assess sleep. We have a cognitive behavioral therapy to reproduce the advice of a doctor to treat insomnia. And we have devices to treat sleep apnea with a dedicated coaching program. So that's about it. And all the steps of the way, we are data-driven, from screening to diagnosis to treatment to post-treatment. We use the data either to make more efficient care, so the doctor knows what he needs to tell to the patient. We know if a patient will need to have a new call or a new contact or a new SMS at some point. But we also analyze all this data and iterate on our technology to build, in the end, more efficient pathway and more efficient care. If you look at all the players for sleep, we are the only one that does at the same time end-to-end care coordination from the beginning to the end of the treatment, and that build beautiful products based on deep technology. You've got other the sleep tech, the traditional sleep centers, or the old players that try to make care coordination, but nobody fills this space today except us. What we propose to US payers, so health insurance, is to say we are cheaper, we are 10% cheaper than the current standard of care. In addition to that, we improve health economic outcomes, and so your patient are going to have their insomnia treated, to be more compliant to their CPAP, which is linked to less mood disorder, less cardiovascular disorder, less neurodegenerative disorder, which have savings for the patient, and we increase the satisfaction of the patient. Well, that I can go quickly. We've got a timed plan for scale with different players that already want to use our solution and pilots that are planned. And we solve one of the main problems of the industry by proposing to the whole covered population to use our screening and sleep improvement tool. We drive like that patient to our digital sleep clinic. That's our pricing. And Dream today hold a very strategic position with all the major players of the ecosystem. Pharma companies, I mentioned that already, so they use us for clinical trials. but we've got also some more long-term partnership where they are interested to identify patients with particular disorders like hypersomnia or narcolepsy in our clinic, so they can use the new treatment that they develop. They also give us data, for example, that we can use to increase our regulatory label. For academics, I mentioned that we work with more than 300 research labs in the world, that for them an opportunity to have a lot of publication, which is also interesting for us and which also allows us to be always state of the art in terms of new therapy or new biomarkers. We work also with government. For example, we have 2 projects that are being discussed, one with France, one with United Emirates, to treat the whole population in exchange of public funding. Controlling sleep is a $1 trillion opportunity. Why Dream will be a major player in this field? Because we know how to build beautiful product that people like and want to use, because our technology is used by the most serious actors in the world, academics, pharma companies. We have the best team, very skilled people, and we are end-to-end data-driven, which means that every time that a patient goes to our clinic, we learn more and we build more barriers to entry for new players. Yeah, and that's it.
Okay, very good. So you see, it's highly interesting to see the all the journey and the difference between the early pitch and today's pitch, where the vision has been structured. And you see they moved, Dream moved from that idea of selling headsets to people who want to be more efficient in their work life by sleeping better, to a medical journey where they have these 2 pillars, you know, working with labs and leveraging the platform they have to help labs in all kind of project they might have and developing new treatments. And that idea of building a digital online medical clinic for helping to better sleep. So you see that they build that step by step, that core asset that leads to 2 different lines of activities that have, of course, in synergy, because each one help the other. What they do with the lab actually helps the digital clinic, and probably the other way around. So you see, it's a very interesting case to see how a project, how long it takes, sometimes how long it takes to make the right decision, to really put the project on the right track. You know, retrospectively, it looks simple. But as you pointed out, you know, the references that if all the comparables that you mentioned had existed in 2018, you probably would have thought differently about that decision, but there was no comparable to Dream that could support all that decision. So it's a long journey, you know, to really identify the right direction and identify the right way to move on in that right direction. So we have 10 minutes left for our interview discussion with Quentin. So as for me, but please shoot some questions, put some question on the whiteboard and I will ask them. In the meantime, I'd like to discuss some team issues, because of course, throughout the journey, the team probably evolved a lot. So one simple question, how many of the early team, the one you mentioned you hired were, I mean, I'm emphasizing the contrast, you know, the small team you hired when you were in Berkeley, how many of them are still on board? Because the company changed so much, the jobs and roles changed so much. So how many are still there?
About half of them.
Half of them, which is a pretty good result. So, and can you elaborate on how they change in their role? Because what I guess what they do now has nothing to do with what made you hire them.
Yeah. And the way a team grows is not necessarily easy, because the job that somebody does in a team of 10 people is very different from the job that you will do in a team of 70 people. And at first, we hire people for their technical expertise because they are good to do stuff by themselves. But as the team grows, we have more and more needs, not only to be brilliant on your side, but maybe to work with a more processed organization or to manage large teams. And some of them did that very well. For example, Olivier that I mentioned, he's now our VP hardware and product. So he's handling a team of about 30 people or 25 people. For some of them, it was a bit harder. They have been excellent technically, but it's hard for them to grow in a team that is growing, either because it's hard for them to be a good manager, which is not necessarily the same skill as being a good individual contributor. And in some cases, that's not a problem because people are okay with it. In some cases, it can be complicated because they were almost the most important person of the organization in the early days. And when the team is growing, their importance on the whole company is decreasing. And so that can create frustration that needs to be handled. And so finding its place for an early member of the team is not necessarily obvious when the company is growing. Sometimes people grow with the team, sometimes they don't. And if they don't, it can trigger some frustrations on both sides. So a bit more, not only about how these people evolved, but more generally, we've seen some big steps. Might have been some 3 or 4 ones when each time that you set an organization, that you put in place an organization, it's for a particular size of team and a particular purpose of the team. And several times in the life of the company, either because the team grew, and so what you said for 10 people don't work for 30 or don't work for 70, you need to change the way you are organized. But also when we decided to go from consumer to more medical application, then the teams change, the organization need to change. And actually, I really see the teams like a team in general, like a living organism, which needs to evolve constantly. And so today we've got a team in our team, which is dedicated to think about what we can constantly improve in the team's organization. So you've got a team of internal operations, and their goal is not only to make communication flows smoothly, but also to think and to have the constant obsession of the performance of the efficacy of the team. And if they believe that at this point, what we had decided 1 year ago is not relevant anymore, they will propose some new organization, some new process that we can apply. And if we, for example, for now, we are growing our business with researchers and pharma companies. So, so we need to adapt the way there is more work that is coming. We need to adapt and grow this team. And we are also starting to grow the team in the US. So the communication between California and France is not necessarily easy. And all the time, there's all this little stuff you need to optimize. And that was my job. I've been the CTO of the company at first, so working on development of the product and technology. After that, I've been the COO of the company, so obsessed by the performance of the organization. And for about a year, I've been the CEO of the company. But I cannot keep the obsession of the performance of the team. That's something that I have somebody that was my chief of staff before that, and now he's director of operation. And so in his team, they are thinking about how you can optimize the structure. So that's keep seeing the team as a living organism that constantly needs to evolve. You cannot make some strong change because it will break the dynamics, but you cannot keep it rigid as well because it will not be adapted to its purpose.
So we have a question on the whiteboard on the relationship with the lab, but before we touch that, because we're among academics and thinking about how to build an educational program. My question is there a way to prepare the entrepreneurs to these management challenges, really managing your organization as a living or forever changing objects? Is there a way to learn more about that in advance, or is it something that you just have to go through it and learn how to overcome as it comes?
I don't think you need to learn that in advance because, for example, I have no clue about what it's like to manage a team of 1,000 people, and I would be very happy to learn that when I'm there. But learning how to manage a team of 1,000 people today, it's a skill that I absolutely don't need to make my job. And the same thing when you start a company, you don't need to know how to manage a team of 100 people. So I don't think you need to know that. The only thing you need to know is that you have to be supported by advisors and people that know and that have been there before. For example, I've got the COO of Dailymotion. It's a French company that have been through different steps. And for quite a long time, I spent 2 hours with him every 2 weeks and presenting him all my problems and getting feedback about how he structured that in his organization. And if I go to an organization, and he's been CEO for like 10 years, and he's been from CTO to CPO to COO, so Chief Marketing Officer even. So he knows about everything about is for me that the strongest profile that I know in how to structure a team. And I've got these regular calls with him. Now I have a bit less, but my director of operation and my head of product and my VP software, I sent him to him for tips,
for advice and guidance. Yeah.
Advice. And I have probably like 5 or 10 advisors. Some of them that I see every week, some of them that I see every month, some of them every quarter. And I really rely on these people to help me overcome the different challenge that I have. And when the team is going to be 1,000 people, then I will try to seek people who have managed that kind of team to get advice from them.
So we have 2 questions, and I guess we'll wrap it up from there. So thanks for all these great questions. One about the lab. So you pointed out that you have a strong network of collaboration with labs today. And the question is it something that you learn to value along the journey, or that you had in mind from the very early days, that you needed to collaborate with research labs because it was a very complex deep tech issue?
I would say both. From the very first days, we worked with a lot of academics to help us build our product and to help us guide us from technical and scientific standpoint. But today, today we have 350 research labs using our device for research, but it's more the other way around. They use our device to help them measure sleep or measure brain activity in their sleep research or their clinical trials, or their research in their clinical trials. And the fact that it could become a business in itself, a significant revenue for the company, was not something that we expected at the beginning.
Okay. And I think it's a great summary question. If you look backwards, what is the key success factors for such an early stage startup like Dream? Starting with a deep tech, dealing with some health-related issues. What are the 1 or the 2 or 3 key success factors you would give as an advice to a young student embarking on a comparable journey, not sleep, but something else?
For the first one, for the beginning of the company, I think the key success was the team and our ability to convince people to come with us, which is the 2 are kind of linked. We are able to convince high-profile entrepreneurs or investors to trust us, and we are able to convince very qualified people to work with us and to trust us. So I would say for the first part, that was that. ability to convince, and the team. Today, what is driving the company to success right now is more the team and the mission. We know what we want to build. We know what we want to do. We've got a clear path for the next 12 to 18 months. And we know how we are going to make money. We know how we make money at the moment. We know what are the trends of the market. And we know what we want to solve. We want to solve sleep disorders. We want to increase the possibility for academics and to push the boundaries of sleep science. And for that, we've got a very strong team. And as long as we keep that team and mission, we've been through kind of complicated times 18 months ago when we changed from direct to consumer to medical. It's been very tough. We had to fire some people, we had to change, we had to everything. But at the time, we had our team that was very strong and our mission that was quite clear. And in less than 12 months, going from stopping a business, firing people, to having a profitable company and having the interest of all the big players in the industry and preparing a large round of funding is something that has been very quick. And it has been quick because we've got very smart people and they are all driven in the same direction, which is a bit different from what we had at the beginning. We are very smart people and we are able to sell in a good way what we did. And it's a bit always the case. The things that you need at the beginning are going to be different from the things that you need in the end. But I think the team is what you need at every step of the company.
But the other side of the coin, I think it's a very good summary that you were smart enough to raise the funds so you could attract these talents, as you pointed out. So it was a matter of conviction, but also you had the resources to provide the environment and eventually the salary. So these people were able to make that bet. I don't know if it's going to work, but I want to give it a try along with Quentin and join the team. So there are these two sides because it requires a talent actually to raise a significant amount of money while you have achieved nothing because you have an idea, a research paper, and a vision that is a dream, but written differently, DREAM, that you want to accomplish. So maybe a second core talent at the beginning is really to raise the amount of funding that you need to precisely start executing, bring the level of world-class talent that you feel like you need. So very, very good. Is there a word you want to add, Quentin, before we wrap up the discussion? That was extremely interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. No, not particularly. I think it's been kind of a long journey so far. So it's 7 years. It's more. Well, I'm 30 years old, so for me that's more than a quarter of my life spent on dreams. So it started to be quite a lot. It's been a lot of different emotions from high that are very high, down that are very down, but I think everybody tells me that the most important thing is not where you go in the end and what you achieve if you sell your company or whatever, but the journey. I think in the past years I've managed to enjoy the journey more than the destination, and I think you need to do that to be able to keep going after 7 years or after more than that. So yeah, so to conclude, thank you again, Bruno, because that's well, thanks to you that we started this company and that we started this long journey. And yeah, that's a great pleasure to be there today, 7 years later, to give a testimony of what we learned.
Thank you very much, Quentin. Any final word, question? No, we're good. Okay, so thanks, Quentin. Thank you very much. And thank you all for joining and writing down the question. I think it was a good way to smooth the interaction and digging into your questions and again your feedback, so we can improve that for our next discussion will be helpful. So next will be the debriefing, discussing session. So it will be interesting because you got 3 exposures to 3 very different projects. So I think there is a lot to dig and to discuss from there. And I do hope you found that interesting and inspiring. Personally, I do. I always learn a lot from all these projects, from my former students and other projects. So it's very interesting. Thanks a lot to you all, and thanks Quentin again for being there today. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
参加者の皆様、ぜひフィードバックを Google フォームに書いておいてください。お願いします。チャットの方にリンク貼ってありますので、よろしくお願いいたします。Bruno, thank you very much for the 3 excellent interview discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. See you.
See you.
Next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.